KDS North on WDSC WRPT. Lawyers on the Line is brought to you by Falsani, Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Beyer. For nearly 40 years, answering the Northland's toughest legal questions, helping you understand where you stand. Falsani, Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Beyer.
Good evening and welcome to Lawyers on the Line. I'm Eric Beyer, a partner with the Falsani Balmer, Peterson, and Quinn law firm, and this evening's moderator. Tonight we're talking about automobile injury claims. We all know that accidents happened. As a matter of fact, motor vehicle collisions are a leading cause of injury and death in our society. So, what are your obligations and your rights if you're involved in a car crash? That's what our panelists are here to discuss tonight. We have three members of our law firm here. First, we have Bob Falsani of the Falsani Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Beyer law firm.
That sounds good.
Yes, thank you. Jim Balmer
Yeah.
and Stephanie Balmer. And Jim, Bob, and Stephanie are ready to take your questions, so give us a call right now at 218-788-2844, or if that's a long-distance call for you, you can call our toll-free line at 1-877-307-8762. All right, let's start out. First of all, basic question. Does a person have to have car insurance in Minnesota, first of all?
Mandatory in Minnesota.
All right, how about Wisconsin?
Not anymore. When Governor Doyle was in the mansion, it was mandated by law, but after Walker was elected governor, it went back to you don't have to have insurance, but there are minimum limits on policies if you choose to get it.
All right. So Stephanie, you're watching TV and one of 8 million ads come on for insurance and you decide to start shopping for car insurance. What are you going to get when you say, hey, I have a car, I need car insurance? Let's just start with Minnesota first of all.
Well, I would recommend talking to someone as opposed to buying insurance online, first of all. A lot of people will shop around, ask for referrals for an insurance agent. And if you get someone who's doing a good job, insurance agents are regulated by state law. They'll make sure they sell you the minimum amount of coverage, hopefully more than that. A lot of people, usually younger people who don't think anything bad is ever going to happen to them, just want to pay the minimum amount of insurance possible. And that's fine, except if you get in a car accident and or have some other sort of claim made against you and you don't have enough coverage, you're going to expose yourself.
Well, Bob, what coverage do you actually get? So, I mean, you literally say, I have a new car. I mean, do you get, collision insurance? Do you get your property damage covered? What do you get?
Yeah, auto coverage has multi-layers of different things.
What are they?
Okay, and first of all, you're going to be able to cover your property damage. And then you have liability insurance to cover you if you cause a collision and hurting someone else. And then you have comprehensive in case your car blows up on you and fire or something. And then there's no-fault coverage, which we'll talk about later, but that has a lot of different things to it, but it basically pays some medical bills and some wage loss if you're in a collision, regardless of fault. I mean, you're drunk, you hit a tree, and you still get money. And then one of the important things is the coverage that cover you for the people that either have lousy insurance or no insurance. And that's lousy insurance is underinsured, no insurance is uninsured. And in Wisconsin, if it's not mandatory, there's all these people wandering around driving very poorly with no insurance. So you want to make sure you cover yourself.
Okay. Jim, how much insurance should somebody carry?
The minimum limits required in both states for any auto policy were written years ago. And the minimum limits are simply not adequate. If I buy an auto policy, I like to get $100,000 in property damage liability coverage to cover the cost of an expensive car if I'm in a mishap with it and it's my fault. The other driver's driving a what are those electric cars called? The Tesla. Yeah, not a lot of those around here, but, and
Even if it's a Maserati, you're stuck.
well, then, yeah, but 100,000 is better than 20, or even 50. I have asked for stacking on my no-fault coverages so that I have enough money to cover medical expense, which we all know is much higher now than it was even 5 years ago. I have extra coverage to cover my injuries if the other driver has inadequate coverages. And I have $1 million umbrella that also covers additional losses that I might suffer, or for that matter, if I'm at fault and I hit somebody who's injured catastrophically as a result of my fault.
Okay. All right, we have a question from a caller in Duluth. Stephanie, should you just go with the company with the lowest rates?
You can. Again, they're required to give you the minimum amount of coverage under the law. So if your intent is to go in and just pay as little as possible for as little amount of insurance, I'm sure we all have opinions about the circumstances in which you have to make a claim against your own insurance company. As Bob mentioned, if you get in a mishap involving your automobile and you're injured or you miss time from work, you can make a claim against your own insurance company. Some insurers are better to deal with than others. Some will be more reasonable in paying the claim when they should. Others will not. So I'm not going to name names today, but you can always ask us what we think. So
You call us at
you
our
can call
office.
us.
Call
Yes,
us at our
call us
office,
at our
right.
But,
right.
but you had said that not getting the insurance online is wise.
Well, that's my personal opinion. I think when you're trying to figure out what your needs are, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis, like with anything. And as you had mentioned, there's something called stacking in Minnesota, which is basically paying a bit of an extra premium, it depends, to have multiple coverages on one claim, we'll call it. So if you're paying for the insurance in your household and you're paying to insure 4 different cars, well, each of those cars is going to have a minimum amount of no-fault coverage available. If you pay this extra coverage, you can go after that coverage times 4. But that requires a conversation, or at least this offer of stacking. And if you decline it, if, again, you don't want to pay that extra premium because you don't think you're ever going to need it, I would feel more comfortable knowing that was face-to-face.
And just for clarification, no fault is just payment for medical expenses related to you.
Correct.
And the regular policy is $20,000. That's what the standard is, and you can stack it to get up to 80. And I think we've seen helicopter rides that eliminate 100% of $20,000 of coverage right there if you end up having to get flown to the hospital. So, okay, Bob, what are a driver's? This is a call from Duluth. What are a driver's responsibilities for their passengers wearing their seatbelts? Let's talk. I guess there's probably a civil and a potentially criminal issue there if it's involving minors. How about, is it different for front seats and back seat passengers?
Yeah, I think they have some regulations for minors having to have seatbelts on if you're the driver. I don't think they can make the driver responsible for, criminally at least, for the passengers. And civilly, it's not relevant in a collision situation. Minnesota has a special rule which basically says whether you have a seatbelt on or not is not even told to the jury. It has nothing to do with fault. It's totally irrelevant. Wisconsin allows seatbelt evidence, but it only comes in if they can show that the seatbelt really would have prevented something, which is usually pretty speculative. So a lot of times that doesn't come into play either. So.
All right, Jim, what should I do at an accident scene to document what occurred? Witnesses, photos, video, get checked, law enforcement. What do I do?
You and I have talked about this. In the 21st century, everybody has a cell phone, it seems. Almost all of them are capable of recording pictures. So taking some pictures at the scene is a good idea, even before the police arrive. Obviously, the police ought to be summoned if it's more than a very minor impact. You need to get the name and the contact information for the other driver, regardless of whether the police are summoned. Those are the absolute minimums. I've seen a lot of cases for people I represent improve dramatically by somebody who got the names of the people nearby and put them on their phone, and who took video and stills of the scene of the crash before anybody moved their vehicles and before the police arrived.
The other thing is, so many times people don't really feel their injury till the next morning. They get the adrenaline flowing. Probably 60 to 80% of whiplash injuries don't show up till the next morning. Sometimes it's the same thing with football players. You know, you'll see somebody get creamed during the game and they play the whole game and they seem fine, and the next day they can't get out of bed. So, you know, that's another reason to be careful about this. If some witness comes up and said, you know, it was the other guy's fault, you know, write their name down, because the police officer might not pick it up, and then that's lost forever.
And then the last thing to do, it's always the most important, but it's after you've done all that, call your agent and report to them what has happened. Now, I have a local agent, and I was able to shop for the best policy for my needs because I had an agent who was independent and was able to go to any company that he needed. And they have claims people here in Duluth that will help you with the claim when it comes up. Those are things not available to you online.
Stephanie, if you get some medical care, you notify your agent, you notify your insurance company, they're going to contact you and they're going to have you fill out a form. Do you do that? Can you do that in order to get your no-fault claim going?
I think we all have varying approaches to this. I'll generally tell someone, go ahead and fill out the form.
And it's called what we're looking for is a personal injury protection.
Well, right. What you're talking about is when you notify your own insurer, they're going to investigate the claim. If there's another vehicle involved, another insurance company, they're also going to investigate the claim, and they're also going to want to talk to you, maybe take a statement. But what you mentioned was a personal injury protection, or a PIP, also known as no-fault application for benefits. And most of these look the same, but they want to know some basic details about the collision or the incident. They want to know where you first sought medical care and from whom. They want to know if you've missed any work. Again, a lot of this stuff, as Bob mentioned, doesn't come to, you don't realize the extent of your injuries and the impact they're going to have on your life until down the road. So sometimes people call and say, well, I don't know. That's okay, but I don't know. Just as much information as you can. Obviously, don't make anything up. Keep a copy of everything. I always say that. You know, send a copy to the insurer. Maybe they'll send you a copy. But yeah.
The important thing about these forms is this, though: they can come back and haunt. And so, if you're filling out a no-fault form or giving a statement or a written statement or anything like that, and it says what's injured, make sure you cover everything that's injured. Because a lot of times, you know, you got a broken bone and a sore neck. When the broken bone heals, the neck's still sore. So it's important, don't miss anything. And remember, the other thing is, if you're filling out a form of how the accident occurred, and you know, you're half asleep and you're fooling around and blah, 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 have a couple drinks, that's not the time to do it. And make sure you get it right, you know, what really happened, because you may see that form again and right in the middle of a trial.
And about the injuries, I believe that the important thing here is the average Minnesotan, or for that matter, Wisconsinite, generally thinks, I'll be fine if I just have a couple of days to get over this. So they're disinclined to accurately report the full extent of the pain they feel. And as Bob pointed out, that can come back to haunt you. So disclose anything that hurts, even if you're pretty sure it'll feel better in a day or two. Because if you don't, then that'll be held up as evidence that you weren't hurt and you made it up later. And so be accurate.
Yeah, and the only point of this is to get the medical bills being paid to begin with, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That way you get all your bills paid.
Well,
you know, but when your arm heals in 6 weeks,
right,
and you've said, gee, my neck's killing me, and you go in and want to get some physical therapy, and the insurance company says, we're not paying it, didn't get hurt in the collision, you're not going to be very happy.
Yeah, and along the same vein, you know, when people are asking you if you got hurt in the collision, obviously don't make stuff up, but don't, as he's saying, don't minimize it. If the responding police officers say, are you injured? You know, I'll be fine. They're writing down no injuries. Right. That is what they're putting in that report. Right. And so if you wake up the next day and you can't walk and you end up having severely injured your neck, that accident report says no injuries, that's going to be used against you too. So as he said, it's cultural around here, but it's not the time or place to do it.
All right.
So.
Question from Hibbing. Person was injured, whiplash. How long does she have to bring a claim against the other driver?
6 years.
All right.
From the date of the collision.
And in Wisconsin?
3.
All right. What can a person do if someone runs into your car and they don't have insurance?
Uninsured motorist coverage,
Well,
that's what we're talking
okay,
about.
let's talk about, I just had a client this happened to, and they were rear-ended and they didn't have, the person who hit him didn't have any insurance at all, and the person that was driving the car had an old beater and they didn't have collision. So what can they do about the property damage?
Oh, well, the property damage. I was going to start talking about who everybody lives with
Yeah.
and other insurance coverage, but the property damage.
It's called blood out of a stone.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
Small claims court, right?
Well, some of the questions that Stephanie was mentioning could apply to property damage coverage as well. Maybe the 20-year-old kid did not have insurance on the car he was driving, but if he's a member of his parents' household, then their liability insurance or their collision damage insurance might cover it.
Okay.
It depends. It never hurts to ask. And I've seen cases where a kid was driving a car that didn't have insurance, but the kid was an additional insured on his dad's automobile policy, and that automobile policy covered the property damage that was done by the kid driving the uninsured automobile. So ask around.
All right. What if the person just, it wasn't their fault, they don't feel that they should have to make a claim against their insurance company? What
Are
do they
they
do?
hurt?
Yeah, let's say they're hurt.
Well, if they don't want to make a claim, they don't have to.
Right.
I
But
mean-
how do they get their medical paid?
Well, you'd have to make a claim.
Yeah, you have to make a claim, right?
Yeah, and you can still have your private insurance pay for it, but they're going to push back a little bit because if there's other insurance who's supposed to pay for it,
Right. Okay. What's a liability for a driver who hits a pedestrian? The driver was on their cell phone, pedestrian was injured. This was a call.
I'll take the case.
Yeah.
I've got that one under control, don't worry.
Pretty clear liability
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
How about
You know,
if-
this cell phone thing is ugly, too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, whoa.
Well,
geez.
and I think people don't think, they think they can lie about it. And standard investigation for any of us in any case involves getting the cell phone records.
Right.
And, even I had a case where they couldn't come up with the actual cell phone records, but they could produce the texting records. And this young woman was texting for the 45 minutes before. I mean, every other minute there was a text. And so, the assumption was that she wasn't paying attention. And as Bob said, it's happening more and more. It's
I was on the
terrible.
West Coast recently, and there are signs that remind everybody that it's against the law to even have a cell phone in your hand when you're driving.
I'm waiting for that in Minnesota.
I wish it would.
Yeah.
That's also the law in Illinois.
Yeah.
You cannot talk on your cell phone when you're on the road.
Let's, how about a hypothetical? You're at a stop sign, and we're not talking criminally because I know if you're talking or if you're texting at a stop sign, it's still, that you can still be cited for distracted driving. But let's say you're on the cell phone at a stop sign and you get rear-ended. Does that affect liability?
It shouldn't.
Okay.
It could.
It might, but it shouldn't. It depends on whether the case goes to trial and who your lawyer is, but it shouldn't.
It's like being drunk and getting rear-ended. I've had this case 3 or 4 times. The poor guy is out and he's driving really careful and he stopped at the stop sign and somebody whams him, then he gets a DWI. But it's not admissible in the liability civil case.
Right, and
so,
frankly, because
has nothing to do
his
with
drunkenness
what
didn't have
occurred.
anything to do with the collision this
Yeah.
time.
Right.
You got lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, call from a question from a caller. Can I accept payment from the other driver's insurance for my vehicle damage and later bring a claim for my injuries? Meaning, can I take the money for my car and then say, well, I don't know how I'm turning out physically yet?
It depends on if he has to give them a signed liability release in exchange for the money. If he gives them a signed liability release, he could have a problem.
There's a major insurer in the United States who likes to contact people who are in motor vehicle collisions the next day and offer them $500 for everything.
Progressive. It's progressive.
It's progressive.
Yeah. What they do, they
It
have
is
the white
progressive.
vans.
They do it. So they'll show up, and you may not even feel the effects of your injury yet, and your car was barely damaged, and they say, I have the check right here, just sign this. Okay.
And in fairness to Progressive, that doesn't happen in every case at all. We know that, right?
I assume it doesn't happen.
Okay.
No.
All right. What is accident reconstruction?
I think we've all had experience with that. Let me start and then they can add. It's an effort to reconstruct exactly how the crash occurred. Frequently, though not always, the law enforcement people at the scene will take measurements, mark the locations of the vehicles involved where they came to rest, and using that information, plus the information from the electronic control modules for the airbags, if they deployed, you can reconstruct exactly how the collision occurred, what the speeds of the automobiles involved were, whether anybody actually did stop at a stop sign or only said they did, and so on. You generally need a skilled crash reconstructionist to do this. There are some, they're not plentiful, but there are some. Each one of us has somebody we like to use in such situations.
That's why if your car was in any degree of a collision to the extent that it's not reparable, don't let them take the black box. Because if you're going to end up making a claim, you don't want to talk to a lawyer right now or whatever. 6 months down the road, nobody can find the black box. We've lost that data, and that's really important. So if you've been in a collision and there's things coming down the pipe, keep that in mind. That black box is really important.
I'm just going to volunteer something about technology.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, go ahead.
And that's
Call you Cloud Bob at work for.
I don't know how many cases I've had recently where this stray video, and you're watching CSI and all that, but it's in the civil arena where we work. It's the same thing. You're sitting there and somebody says, "No, I didn't run over this guy," and then you get the video and there's a truck going right by before and after where the person got run over. I mean, it's amazing.
I had that case where somebody was pulling out from an intersection which was near a gas station, and before she hired me, she contacted the gas station, and they had surveillance video of their gas pumps, and you could see the accident happen in the background.
Yeah,
So,
and the Baltimore police van, they knew it stopped without it being reported because they got private video showing it
yeah,
from a store near where it stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had a case where the guy that was trying to hire me was so in the wrong, and it was right on video. It's great. I'm not taking this case.
right, perfect. All right.
Saved me a lot of heartache.
I got a ticket for a collision, but I do not think it was my fault. Can I still make a claim?
Yes. I've handled a couple cases like that. One case I'm thinking in particular, she had gotten the ticket, but I hired an accident reconstructionist in that case, and after a good deal of investigation, it was determined that my client bore some degree of fault, but you don't have to be zero at fault to be able to make a claim against the liability carrier. In this case, we ended up agreeing that there was a split, but that the other driver was largely at fault, and we made a decent recovery for her.
But the big thing that the driver asking that question needs to do is don't appear in court and plead guilty just to get rid of the problem, because if you do that, then you cannot make a claim. If you mail a check in, you can probably still make the claim, but not if you appear in court and under oath admit guilt just to be done with it.
I know what you're saying. The conviction itself of a misdemeanor like that, or petty misdemeanor, like a traffic ticket, that's not admissible.
Right.
But what you say in court is. So,
right.
If you say, I went through the stop sign and I was wrong and I was drunk and blah, 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 well, I guess you're stuck then.
Or more practically, I don't want to waste a day at work, and I don't want to have to fight this for $50 or $100, whatever the speeding tickets are these days.
And the judges are pretty good. I mean, the judges don't require you to, mea culpa all over the place. If you want to get rid of a ticket, you plead guilty and pay it.
All right. Here's a question from a caller. What is an owner's exposure when loaning a car to a friend or relative and they get into an accident with your car?
If they have insurance, then...
Meaning the owner of the car?
Yeah.
Okay.
The owner of the car, his insurance covers the claim if he gave permission to the driver, and the driver is then involved in a crash. The owner's insurance covers the claim.
And it's primary.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the first level of coverage.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, even if the buddy to whom you loaned the car was 100% negligent, we have this kind of vicarious liability in an ownership statute where you know, they take full responsibility for owning the vehicle.
So you're always responsible for the collision if you loan your car to somebody. That's basically what you got to keep in mind. All right, an 18-year-old son going off to college. Does son have to stay on insurance policy when living away from home? Is it the law? What do you do when you're sending your kid off to college? Let's say that they're taking your car.
It's not the law, but
Right.
if it's your car, you darn well better make sure there's insurance. And if the kid isn't going to remain covered on your policy, you better get the kid his own policy. And the best way to determine which way to go on that, talk to your agent. The agent will make a recommendation and tell you what's best.
If you, let's go ahead.
The family policy normally is going to cover the kid off to college, even though he doesn't live at the home, because it's viewed as being temporarily away from the home. Now, you know, if your child is 25 years old and has lived independently for many years, you know, then it's only if you give him your car to use, and there wouldn't be coverage then. But you know, the 18-year-old kid that goes off to college, they're usually covered under the parent's policy for uninsured, underinsured, no fault, and liability.
Okay, general question. How do these claims get resolved? Let's say do juries know that about the insurance involved?
In Minnesota, you're not supposed to talk about the insurer at trial. And so if you're forced to file a lawsuit in a motor vehicle collision case, the named defendant is the individual who was driving and or the person who owned the vehicle. So you go to trial and it's Joe Smith did this, that, and the other thing. We're not supposed to mention insurance at all. It's not what's called a direct action state. In Wisconsin, you name the at-fault party and or maybe even just the insurer because they're the one paying the claim.
Now the insurance lawyers, when they try the case, because they know you can't mention insurance, what they love to do is, oh, poor Mrs. Smith. Oh,
How would you pay this verdict?
You know, well, they can't say how would she pay the verdict, but you know, they make it
You
out
get
like
close.
it's coming right out of poor Mrs. Smith's hide.
Well,
Yeah.
So we hope juries know. We're just not allowed to tell
well,
them.
with that drama, we're going to have to wrap it up tonight because that's all that time we have. Thanks for calling in. Remember, you can watch our show again online at wdse.org or at duluthtriallawyers.com. Please join us again next week when we'll be talking about criminal law. I'd like to thank our panelists for their expertise this evening, and thank you for watching. I'm Eric Beyer. Good night. Do this promo thing anyway, so.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, am I going now? Yeah. Okay. Criminal courts strive to make certain defendants and victims are treated fairly while balancing the interest of society at large. So what should you know if you're involved in a criminal case? That's what we'll be discussing next time on Lawyers on the Line, Thursday night at 7:30 on PBS North.
Are you good? You want to run brothers again? Or?
Let's try it. Let's go for it. Oh, that's it. There's a typo. Defendants and victims. That's fine. I'll try to remember. Oh, nice. Criminal courts strive to make certain defendants and victims are treated fairly while balancing the interests of society at large. So what should you know if you're involved in a criminal case? That's what we'll be discussing next time on Lawyers on the Line, Thursday night at 7:30 on PBS North.